Hey guys, so you might be someone that's watching this right now, and you seem to have trust issues, right? And I mean trust issues in the sense that you always want to have control of things, right? Like you just don't trust anyone, and sometimes that sometimes you know it could be a good thing in the sense that you're very cautious, you're very aware of your surroundings, right? That sometimes that could be a good thing in a way, but other times it could also kind of prevents us from really trying to um yeah, it could prevent us from really trying to establish relationships with people, right? In the sense that you know um yeah, just establishing relationships. They could be like friendships, right? um when you're around people, you make them with your trust issues, you sometimes you can make other people feel like you know yeah, like they don't want to be around you, right? Like sometimes you might end up making the other person feel like they don't know anything, or that you're better than them. Sometimes, yeah, it can get to a level where it could become you know bad, right? And so yeah, this is just something that it came to my mind this morning, right? um and yeah, and there are people out there that I'm sure that have these or that have experienced someone like this, or they themselves might be like this, right? Where you're always trying to have control of the situation, right? like sometimes the people around you might feel like they might not understand you, right? Like they might not understand that you know you might have experienced things in the past to where that kind of shaped, right, who you are right now. Like in a way, it's like you're very paranoid, right? But it's like other people are not gonna understand that, right? So sometimes with your trust issues, like you can make other people feel like you know you might make them feel just low, or like they don't know anything, or um you know and this is just like one aspect, right? Like one aspect of what trust issues can do, right? I'm sure there's plenty more, you know but yeah, uh, a lot of us, we've experienced things, right, from the past, and like we don't realize, like sometimes we carry that over, right, to our new life, right? Like let's say in the past, we've you know been let down, or we've seen like crazy things, right? And so like now that kind of you know yeah, that kind of impacted us, right, in a very like negative way, right? To now we actually carry that over to our life now, right? And now when we look at anyone, right, we kind of look at them with caution, right? Like we look at them with like, and sometimes it can prevent friendships from happening, right? Like when you're looking at every person's move, right? Like what is this person up to? Like what is his intentions? Like if you kind of you know if you're like this around every single person, you know it can yeah, it can ruin relationships, right? Like sometimes people might not want to be around you, right? Because it's like and maybe sometimes like you might just take certain things out of context, and like now you make the person feel like they're against you, right? When really they're not. They're just yeah, maybe you just took something out of context, right? And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that you shouldn't be cautious. I'm not saying that you shouldn't be aware of your surroundings, and try to protect yourself. I'm not saying that, right? But I'm just saying that sometimes let's say you're around a group of people, right? And you look at an individual, or you look at you look at a person as if you know um yeah, like you look at every little thing about them, right? Like what is their intentions, like you don't need to go into a circle with that, right? Like you don't need to go into a group of people and try to look at every person's intentions, right? Because like no one's saying you have to be best friends with these people, right? Like no one's saying you have to, you know, have good relationships with these people. It's just you're in a group setting where, people just came together for, let's say, an event or just something, right? And so you don't need to have this sense of paranoia, right? Like this sense of, yeah, I would call it paranoia, right? Like you don't have to have this sense of paranoia around a group setting to where, like, you know, these are not like your friends, right? Like you're not choosing like you're not looking at who's gonna be your best friend and who's not, right? Like this is just a circle where, people kind of came together for an event or for whatever, and they're just trying to have a good time, right? Like everybody's just trying to, talk and maybe, who knows, maybe through that bonds or relationships can be created, right? And so, I would just say, just, no, it's funny to me because, like, it's just funny to me, right? It's just funny. Yeah. So I would just say, yeah, if you, if you're one of those people, right, that have severe trust issues, right? Like I said, having a sense of caution and, a sense of, being, wary of your surroundings, that's fine, right? Like everybody has to protect themselves or, just have caution, right, to an extent. But when it gets to a level where it's extreme, right, where it's like every person you're around, you're kind of looking at them up and down, you're looking at, like you're kind of analyzing this person, right? And so it's like sometimes that's not necessary, right? Like sometimes, it's not necessary because, yeah, in the past you might have been, let's say someone, they ended up, doing something that, you didn't expect, right? But that's the past, right? Like that's the past. The past, you might have been in certain situations or you might have been around certain people that, where, you couldn't trust those people, right? Because, you guys were in the wrong environments, right? But now when you're switching over to a life or an environment where, you have good people around, right? Like you're in a good environment, you're not alone, right? You're not by yourself, you're with a group of people. Then it's like, you shouldn't expect the worst, right? I mean, things can happen still, right? That's why you should, take caution in the sense that, you should put yourself in better environments with better people. But then now you have to leave everything to God, right? Now it's like, I've done my part to, be around good people, to be around good environments. And now the rest I have no control over, right? And so, that's where I think the paranoia and the sense of, always being on guard, I think that's where you kind of diminish it a bit, when you start to, put yourself, like they say, you have control to a certain extent, right? You can't control every little thing, right? You can't control, things that you can't foresee, right? Like you cannot control things, right? But you can control the environment that you're in, the people that you're around, right? Like you can control these things. And then after that, right, you should leave it to God, right? Like you've done your part to make sure that, you put yourself in good environments, good situations around good people. And then after that, whatever comes out of it, that's up to God, right? And, and hopefully you should go into things like that with with a feeling of like, there's positive energy, right? Like there's positive people. We're in a good, safe environment. Nothing crazy is gonna happen, right? We shouldn't be in our heads too much, right? Like we shouldn't be, we shouldn't be too, I don't know what's the word, but yeah, just kind of leave that, to the side, right? Sometimes, trust issues can ruin relationships, right? Sometimes, it can ruin relationships. Like if you don't, you don't place it where it should be, right? Like trust issues, there should be, like I said, there should be caution, and there should be these things. You should be a person who's aware, who's observant, right? These things are okay, but it can get to a level where it can become bad, right? Like say for example, you let's say you moved on from a past life, and now let's say you get married, you settle down, right? Now you can't be, you can't be like too cautious of your family, right? Like your wife, your kids. Like you can't look at them as if like they're plotting against you. Maybe that was an extreme example, but you get the point though, right? Sometimes we have to trust people, right? Like in this case, I'm not saying in all cases, but this case, right, where you're married, hopefully you've done your just due, right? Like you made sure you found someone that you can trust, someone that that you can trust, and etc., right? And so now when you settle down, there shouldn't be any sense of you like like you looking at this person's every move, like you not trusting this person. Like this is your wife, right? Like this is your husband, right? And so you should trust one another in that sense, right? So this is where this is an example of where it can become bad, right? Like sometimes we take our past issues, right, or like our past experiences, and we take it over to a new life, right? And so this is where it can become, like I said, very it can get bad, right? If we don't manage it, right? We don't look we don't manage it, right? So I just wanted to take the time to speak on trust issues, right? Because I know everybody has experienced or experiences or know of people, or just this is something that it's well common, right? So I just wanted to mention a few things about that. So I appreciate you guys for tuning in, and as always, take care, guys.